Hello everyone, Luke here. Now before I get to talk about Dr. Stone today, I just want to make a quick announcement that next week there'll be no videos, and the reason for that is that next week I am going away. I've got a week off next week, so I'm using that to go away and spend some time with friends I haven't seen for a while, including Sid. That was in some of my earlier videos when I started doing manga and anime reviews and all of that. So yeah, I'm gonna go and see him, see how everything's going on with him, catch up with him, and get some insight into what he did with his series, his Telefonita series, which I've been reading as well. He's on his final book, and I'm really enjoying it so far. Lots of twists and turns, including he does the Eisen twist. Yes, he does the Eisen twist, and I was just like, holy crap, he went there. So I'll be going and getting some insight into him, like what motivated him to start the series and how it's changed his perspective on writing over the past few years. And that's something I'm looking forward to. But that's something I wanted to say. So there'll be no videos next week. I'm getting Dr. Stone this week and Promised Neverland out this week. Hopefully I might be able to get chapter 152 out this week as well, but I can't guarantee that. But 151 is still coming. It'll be coming right after this video. But for now, let's talk about Dr. Stone. Okay, so this we're talking about episodes 10, 11 and 12, and these episodes include meeting Kasake, the craftsman of the Kingdom of Science, who's one of my favourite characters. That's the last of my favourite characters that were introduced. So I can tell you now the order of where it actually comes. Okay, so number 1 favourite character is Suika, number 2 is Chrome, number 3 is Kasake, number 4 is Kokaku, and number 5 is Senku. So those are my top 5 favourite characters, and Gen is number 6, and there are a few other characters that are 6 through 10 that haven't been introduced yet, so I'm going to keep them, bear them to a minimum, and you'll be able to find them out soon enough if the anime does actually get that far. But for now, the top 5 characters, you all know who they are, but let's just get right into it. Okay, so starting out with episode 10. Alright, so with episode 10, they did do what I kind of expected to do. Okay, so at the end of volume 3, which is this part right here where Senku's having his flashback to when he first discovered talking about electricity, and then we get that gleeful look of excitement on his face. Okay, so that I assumed was going to be at the end of episode 9, but no, they saved it for episode 10, which I feel like is a decent start to like kind of get us invested in what's going on at this moment in time, and like get an excited look from Senku before the credits start rolling in. Now, another thing I noticed with Senku's flashback is that we get a little bit more, again, not necessarily changing things, just sort of like sprinkling and adding little things to like make it a bit more tangible as a series as well. And in this case, it has a little bit of scene where Senku actually first picks up the Edison book and what inspired him to actually study science and become a scientist in the first place. And I really love that about this particular series, how they're not really necessarily cutting things out, they're just expanding things and just sort of swapping things around so that it makes the episodes flow a bit more smoother than what it was in the manga, and this will become more apparent in episode 10. Now, another thing that's actually expanded on is the conversation before Suika actually goes, okay, so anyone with Tsukasa's a bad guy, but then gets with him, so he's a bad guy, but he saves Suika, so he's a good guy, and all of that. It basically has Kokaku telling Suika about basically what's going on, and I feel like the only reason they added this in is because Suika, being so small, she can't quite comprehend certain aspects of life, so it has to be told to her in sort of like a down to her level kind of way in order for her to understand. Again, like I said, not really taken away from the actual story itself, just again adding those little tiny little bits of detail that I especially like, just give it that little bit of added extra flavour to a scene itself. Now, one of the major crucial differences between the manga to the anime is right at the beginning of volume 4, which is basically where these 3 episodes take place primarily, and they take place in volume 4. We have the flashback with again when he first broke out of the stone, and when he actually actually first laid eyes on Tsukasa in this primitive world rather than in their actual time. In the anime, it's after they've all had that conversation about Gen's loyalty, and he's actually looking at the generator right here. That's when we actually get the flashback, and I feel that's much more appropriate because for the episode to actually fall, because it would have been a little bit jarring to just get that right at the beginning and then immediately come back to Suika and get although maybe it isn't jarring the way I'm putting it, the way I'm presenting it here. Maybe it isn't jarring. Maybe it's maybe the only reason they added that flashback in was to like get to give an idea for Suika. Like, okay, so anyone for Sukasa's a bad guy, but Gen is a bad guy, but he's not a bad guy. Is he not a bad guy? I feel like that's what the author's intentions were in the original planning out stages of the manga. It's that, okay, we need to see how Gen emerged from the stone, so that when we come back to Suika, she's like understanding it. But since the anime told her beforehand, then it seemed kind of pointless to actually continue to actually have it in that scene. And again, well, I'm not necessarily against that change. I feel like as it's established, like showing rather than telling is much more apparent. And I feel like because they now that I kind of understand it a bit more, I feel like it kind of takes away from the impact of so we can kind of understand it through the mentality of having the flashback. But again, that was they probably changed that around because it seemed a little bit out of place for those characters to actually have an idea of what of how Gen emerged from the stone, if that's what it's actually implying in the manga. And I feel like for them it makes more sense for Gen to actually have that flashback while he's looking at the generator. I think that's just my humble opinion, and I could be completely wrong and completely off the rails in that regard. But it was a crucial change that I feel like needed to actually be pointed out, because again, I feel like it was put in there in that spot to make the scene flow a little bit more natural for the animators themselves. Now, in the episode itself, it's pretty much made this more obvious that Magma was the one that actually attacked again, because you can actually see the outline of his face, and you can actually clearly see his face if you're actually paying attention. Whereas in the manga, it's made much more. It's made much more ambiguous about who it actually is, because you don't actually see the face of it, even though it's pretty obvious it is manga if people are really paying attention. But they make it so that it's completely in silhouette and you don't actually get a clear view of it being manga before Suika actually tells us who it actually was. And I feel like that just takes away more of the impact of the suspense of the scene when Gen is actually attacked and it is actually hurt by Magma in that regard. And I feel like that's a change that I don't necessarily agree with, and they should have just kept it just showing Magma's hand and just basically his blacked out silhouette. But I feel like the only reason why they didn't have that is because they probably thought like, oh, the audience probably is aware of it, that it's actually Magma who actually attacked Gen, so it's not really going to be much of a shock when we actually do reveal who it actually is. And also one other thing that I never really got is when Gen said, who are you? It's like, really? It's like he couldn't tell that it was Magma. That's a complaint that I have in the manga as well. It's like, really, he couldn't really tell who it was that was obviously attacking him after being made a fool of. But I guess Gen was probably fixated on looking at the generator and debating whether or not he should join the Kingdom Sides. They didn't exactly process in his mind who it actually was, and because he's only saw Magma that very briefly one time, it probably just went to the back of his mind. And that's a common thing that people have. It's like, sometimes, even though I've been friends with so many people for so many years, sometimes I'll probably have that moment. It's like, who are you? And they're like, oh right, you're right, yeah, you're him. So that's probably what was actually implied here. But I'm still a little bit unsure of why Gen said who are you, even though I kind of get a vague idea of what was actually being implied when he said that line, both in the anime and in the manga. And another instance of something being cut, which I actually do agree on, is, if I can actually find it, Yeah, it's right here. It's right here where we have once again Chibi Tsukasa, and again I feel like the only reason they cut that is to keep up the notion of Tsukasa being this viable threat, and if they include that in, it kind of takes away from him actually being even remotely close to being as much of a threat as he is right now. Now, another big major change again as well is that they swap around when Gen is actually leaving. He leaves. I put this note later, but he leaves not after when he's rescued by everyone after being killed by after almost being killed by magma, but he leaves right after they've. Right after we have Chrome's declaration of wanting to change his nature from being a sorcerer to a scientist. If I it's after this point when we actually get the moment when Gen actually escapes to go. When we actually get this point right here, where Gen escapes to actually go and relay that Senku is not actually basically lie to Tsukasa's face. And again, like I said, I feel like that that was only changed because I feel like it just is a little bit more. It just flows a little bit more naturally when it's done in the anime rather than being confused about certain events taking place where they actually are. That was the word I was looking for. Like, just basically being confused about just jumping around from like, oh no, Gen's gone. Oh wait, he's just going back to Tsukasa. Okay, now we need to talk about what we're going to do when we get to the grand bout and all of that. I feel like the way they handled it in the anime, it just made the whole situation flow a little bit more naturally. But one thing I did not like is that they kept up the running gag of them saying, oh no, they're dead. No, they're not really dead. Oh no, they're dead. Not really dead. I mean, it might have been funny to some, but it wasn't funny to me, and I just feel like it was just like, how many times are they going to do this? So again, again some little things that I don't really agree on, and I don't feel they were really necessarily point of repeating over and over and over again. Which is something that you kind of just have to get used to when you're watching an anime comparing it to a manga. Now, another major change from the actual manga to the anime is that when they find out that Magma was the one that tried to kill Gen, and how he mistook Gen from Senku, we get this part right here where we have Chrome and Senku basically laughing and them going, let me get this straight. Magma mistook Gen for Senku and stabbed him. That's 10 billion % being in the wrong place at the wrong time for Gen. And Kokoka going, that's hardly a laughing matter, you two. I can't stand Gen the most, and now I'm the only one pitying him. So again, I feel I'm on Kokoku's side here. I feel like that is just a little bit too far, even for Senku. I feel like that's just a little bit too far. So I'm not a fan of, again, doing the repeat gag of Kokoku being called a gorilla and her towering over Chrome and him going, I'm sorry. I feel like I would tolerate that then just being like here, where it's like, yeah, this really seems a little bit out of place for Senku's character. I know he's a bit of a smug, arrogant bastard, but I feel like even this is a bit too far for him as well. So while I'm not a fan of what they changed it to, I'm glad they actually changed it as well. That's one of the changes that I'm actually alright with. Now, the last points I want to talk about with episode 10 before we get on to episode 11, which has so many good parts in it, but I didn't take much notes because there wasn't really that much difference between the actual episode itself and what was in the manga. But anyway, we have a joke with Gimron talking about forbidden love that was added in when he's like, oh, Ruri and Kukaku are going to get married, and we just have that little bit of joke. And yeah, Gimron's always been kind of a little bit of a pervert, and this pretty much confirms it as well. I feel like they just need a little bit more. I feel like they probably thought, right, we need a little bit more comic relief here, or this part can just be expanded a little bit more than what we have to work with the manga. Again, I don't mind them expanding things as long as they keep they keep the majority of what's actually in the manga. And again, I don't mind them cutting little things out as long as they feel like, yeah, this doesn't fit with the character that's actually being presented right here. Like what they did with that conversation of them joking about Gen being murdered. I don't feel like that was really necessary for Chrome and Senku's character. So I feel like that's probably the reason why they cut it out. And like I said, again, no problem with like doing things like that, making those little changes as long as they make sense. Like unlike with Promise Neverland, when they took out one of the important plot points of the series right at the beginning in favour of just having a scene where Ray's just looking out of the window. And the last point that I want to talk about with episode 10 is we get brief cameos by some of Tsukasa's Empire of May. I'm not going to reveal who those characters are because they're some characters that are very enjoyable, and we'll find out more about them as the series goes on. But also, Gen running back is dragged out a little bit more. And again, I don't know whether they did that because they thought, oh, we have some time left over, we could keep this scene going for a little bit longer. That's probably the only reason why they did that. But yeah, that's episode 10. So now moving on to episode 11. Now more of the sparring between Giron, Kiron, and Kokoko is actually shown before we get on to the main point of the episode, which is talking about glass. And I feel like that's the only reason why they didn't immediately go from why they didn't go from here right through to talking about glass, and they instead went back to the bit with Gen and his Gen and him escaping to go back to Tsukasa Senpai, because I feel like they probably wanted to focus all their intentions on the glass blowing and the glass making in episode 11. I feel like that's the only reason they actually did that they actually did that. But yeah, anyway, continuing on, so we get more of the sparring between Kukaku, Giron, and Kiron before we actually get Senku going on to talk about making the glass as well, and making it so that they can actually see Suika's face. Now, one thing that's actually in the episode as well is that we get a fantasy about glass itself, with Senku going tough as hell and durable, and I'm like, yeah, some glass is Senku, but not all of it. That's the whole reason why it's called a glass cannon, because it breaks pretty easily. But maybe he was probably thinking about plexiglass or glass that doesn't really break necessarily that easily. But again, not all glass is like that, and majority of glass is like, again, a glass cannon, it will break easily. But again, I don't really know why they felt the need to include that. I mean, they could have included like, sometimes it breaks easily, but other times it can be strong and durable. If they included that, then I wouldn't have had any problem with them actually saying that. But anyway, what can you do? So now we move on to one of the things that I actually did like about the episode as well. I mean, I did love these episodes, but one of the best things that I loved about the episode is that when Suika sees for the first time, like actually properly sees when she has the glasses in her watermelon eyes, it's actually done so beautifully and so well, and the music just really emphasizes the emotional state of the tears of joy that are in Suika's eyes, actually being able to see everyone properly for the first time. And again, I just wanted to bring attention to that because it was a really impactful moment and a really lovely moment that she was so happy that it drew her to tears. And again, I love that. I love how animes can actually just build on moments like that and just emphasize just how much of a breathtaking and impactful moment this is by just adding the music in and giving it that little bit much more flavour. So again, credit where credit is due, that was really well handled. Now, one thing that we don't actually get is the fact that they make the declaration of making a laboratory, which is, in order to cure worry, what we absolutely need going forward is a legitimate set of tools, a full-blown laboratory, and we don't get that, and it just feels like it just comes out of nowhere when we actually do get to the laboratory later on, rather than saying like, okay, this is what we need right now. But again, that's just a minor little nitbit that just really irritates me. But but that's not the point of this. The point of this is that I want to talk about the glass blowing. Now, that when you actually have the scene where when you see them just making all those pathetic objects, that reminds me. I'm gonna put the book down here and just go off on a tangent, like Dr. Stone goes off on tangents, and say that glass blowing just really fires you up, and I encourage everyone to try it out. I've tried it out myself. When I went on holiday in June this year, we found out that there was a glass blowing centre, and we actually did some glass blowing ourselves as well. And it was really exhilarating. Basically, how it's depicted here is pretty much how it is in real life. The only difference that I found is that when I did the glass blowing, you had like all the little quarts of sand like just on a table, and you actually had to heat up the stick. Heat up the iron first, and then just roll it onto the actual quartz itself, so that you can actually take them back to the basically how the instructor described it was like actually having a volcano, basically a volcano at like 1,100 degrees. That was basically the exact degrees that he actually gave me, and that's what you had to do. You had to heat up the iron first, then get all the quarts of like little particles onto the iron, and then put it back in, so they actually molded into the actual shape itself, rather than what was here, where they were just putting the iron into the furnace itself. Although maybe they were putting quartz of sand just on the iron, we just weren't seeing that. But one thing I want to say is that is what I made. That was my glass. That what I made, and I don't know if you can actually see it. You could probably see it like right there where it says Luke 6 of the 6/19. So yeah, this was my glass. This is what I actually made, and like I said, it was a lot of fun. It was just really exhilarating, and basically the instructor said to me, and I quote, "Yeah, you might, if you kept this up, you might be an even better glass maker than me." And to get that praise of someone when you've just tried it the first time, that was really exhilarating. And I say that from the bottom of my heart. Glass blowing is actually really exciting, and everybody should try it out now. I encourage you guys to go out and try it. It may be expensive, but it is well worth it just for the experience alone. And I'm not the only ones. If you actually read the little extracts from the volumes that the author and the artist actually have. Let's read it here. I went to a glass workshop to try crafting some glasswork. Basically, it's like super soft clay and really fun. It filled me with the feeling like I could make anything and anything once I got the hang of it. I have no doubt that if a genuine artisan saw glass for the first time, he or she would love to get their hands on some. Therefore, Kasaki's reaction really felt really natural to me. And again, that is actually true. It's like a new thing for them, and they've never seen it before. And the fact that they would probably like, oh, let me get some new crafting done. That's probably the excitement they would probably get. So yeah, his reaction is natural. And also as well, like I've read a lot of comments, or I saw a lot of reactions to episode 11, about people saying like, really, he's not done this for the first time. And it's like, I find that a little bit unrealistic for him to actually just get the hang of this. And it's like, well, I did glass blowing for the first time this year, and I took to it to like duck to water. So yeah, it's not at all out of the realms of possibility. Some people are just natural at other things. Like, even though they haven't done it for the first time, if they see someone doing it, and and demonstrating it, they will be able to get the hang of it right away. And fortunately, I had a good instructor as well, helping me out every step of the way. But even then, most of it was my work as well, and I'm really proud of it. Really proud of this. I not only made this, I made one for my dad, that was more blue coated, whereas this is much more orange. And I might actually go and get that one in a second once I've actually stopped talking about this. But anyway, that moment right there where they had all the basically all the bad ones. That was basically what my mother did. Basically, like she got so far into it that the instructor was like, no, wait, and she made a face, but it kind of like had an odd shape to the tip of it. But again, it wasn't something that was majorly like crooked in there. It was just something that kind of made it stick out, make it more unique, and I love that. Like my mom was basically like them in it when they did that there, and I was basically like Kasaki, who basically took to it like duck to water. But again, like I said, glass blowing for the win. All right, so my dad has put his glass somewhere. I can't find it. So, but anyway, continue on. So yeah, glass blowing, like I said, for the win. Everybody should try it out. Even if you create something so foolish like what they did, it's a lot of fun. It's just the experience of it alone. That's what makes it so exhilarating, and for lack of a better word, gets you fired up. And again, I'm not the only ones, and the author's not the only ones. Even the animators actually, there's a behind the scenes on Dr. Stone, and when they actually do get to the glass blowing episode, they actually went and did glass blowing themselves as well. So again, everyone should try out. Like even if you feel like you can't do it, just give it a try. You never know, you might be a natural. Like again, like how I was, like how perfect this actually just came out for me. And I don't know if you can notice as well, but yeah, that bubble there, it's like I didn't even intend for that. Like that's just in there, but again, it's like something that, again, that's unique for me, makes me stand out as well, and I love that. I love that guy. Like one of the best things that I've ever done, basically. And I say that with genuine sincerity and like, again, just talking about it's getting me fired up. Like guys, like just now, just how giddy of excitement I am. And again, I wish I had the opportunity to do more glass blowing as well, because I would really like to make as much as what Kasaki actually does. And he even say himself, he's been a craftsman for 50 years. So again, someone like that would just take to something like, okay, they've seen it, they know like the composition and how easy it is to like manifest and get the hang of it. And again, like he says in the manga, it's easy for him to work with, whereas in the anime he says something a little bit different. I can't exactly remember what he actually said, but again, it was just natural for him because of him being like an experienced craftsman, and just even though he saw it he actually had an idea of like, okay, this is how it's actually done, and how he can actually make it a steady and make basically anything for them that involves glass. Now, one thing we do actually get is that in the actual episode itself, again, I don't know whether this was because like, okay, they just want to make this episode purely focus on making glass and nothing else, like just make this the full glass episode, that they actually have Mecha Senku going around and explaining all the different areas of the Kingdom of Science. And although they might have done that to like just get basically everyone an idea of like, okay, where is everything and what it actually functions, because there's a lot that actually has been established so far, and it kind of needs that like an explanation for it. So like, okay, even if people are a bit lost, you have it here that's basically simplified so that people around us can understand it. And I feel like that's probably the only reason why they actually did that. But also as well, they have Senku and Chrome having an additional conversation after the Mecha Senku part, to actually say like, look, this is how much has actually come. Was the world crazy like this back in there? And Senku's like, yes, 2 million years was developed over time before the world turned to stone, but now we're going to actually surpass it and catch up to it and surpass it as well. And I feel like, and yeah, that was everything on episode 11. Now, in terms of episode 12, not really much else as well. There was very few things that I had problem with episode 12. But one thing that we actually do get that's not in the manga is Ginron actually winding Kinron up about it, and there's and the flashback between the flashback of Rui. Let's see. Yeah, this one right here. This is actually after when Senku and Chrome have the declaration, after argument and declaration, where where it's like. Yeah, here it's like after this part here where it's like Chrome and Senku are like, we have each other's backs and we're gonna help each other out. That's when we get the flashback from Kukaku's perspective on her relationship with Rui. And I feel like again that just makes the scene flow a bit more natural. It's like it's like she's heard everything that Chrome and Senku have to say, and she's like flashing back to when she first declared that she's gonna help her sister no matter what. And she's like, me and you were a lot alike, Chrome. So again, it feels much more natural for the anime, and it flows a little bit more gracefully, for lack of a better word, rather than in the manga where it's just a bit jarring for her to have the flashback right in the middle of she's hearing Senku and Chrome's conversation. But again, that might have been just a decision on the author's parts. I don't know. But going back to it, like getting more of Ginran winding Kieran up. It's basically just him going, "Oh, I have a silver spear, you don't. Maybe we could get a golden spear, maybe not." And even though it was added in for filler, it was again establishing like the relationship between Giran and Kieran. It's like they are brothers to the T. Because again, Giran, despite how cowardly he is sometimes and how much of a wimp he can be, he's kind of like my spirit animal. Like, even though I would love to be Chrome, I'm kind of more like I'm kind of more like Giron, because sometimes I can be kind of like a guy who's like, okay, I don't want to get involved with this, so I'm just gonna go and let somebody else deal with it. But also as well, I wind up my brother all the time, and it's like Kira's reaction, yeah, basically my brother's reaction. But again, we get along for the most part all right, even though our personalities do clash at times. But yeah, guys, those were the episodes. They were really well presented to us, even though there were bits that were kind of shuffled about here and then. But again, nothing really major was cut. Everything was pretty much kept in and got us really good and really exciting episodes. And again, I love the way the anime is being presented to us. Not really had much to complain about at this moment in time, but that's everything I wanted to talk about. So anyway, guys, what did you think of these episodes? Let me know, and we'll be moving on to Promised Neverland. So yeah, this will be last Shanook going away for a bit before we come back to talking about the Promised Neverland. So see you in a bit, guys.